So welcome and thanks for joining us again. Part 2 of this little series we're going to do on the secrets of a super general dental practice. Mike was just talking about the plans he already is in the process of making for part 3. So that's good. And I think it's been, what, 5 weeks, maybe 6 since we did the other one. So, you know, I'd look for maybe mid to late June. And as we were also just discussing, we have put the first part 1 of this, which we did on May the 6th, maybe April the 6th. This is May the 18th, so April the 6th. It is on YouTube. I also uploaded a lot of other miscellaneous videos that we've done through the years. I think there are 30 or 40 different videos on that YouTube channel. And I was also saying there will be a direct link to that channel. If you can't get on YouTube and search it up, there will be a direct link to that channel in the normal Thursday weekly email that you get from us. So you can kind of watch that. So with that, let's get started. I'll turn it over to Mike and let him unleash. I'll unleash the beast.
Unleash the beast. Yeah, I'm not much of a beast, and let me see if I can remember how to do this. And let's see. So, can you see the screen? Can you see what I see? Okay, I want to read something to you. It was weird. I tend to kind of look at all my messages and stuff like that in the mornings, but I subscribe to a newsletter by Seth Godin, who wrote The Purple Cow. And the title of it this morning was To Stay the Same. And he does a quote from Willem Koenig. He said, and this is from Koenig, "I have to change to stay the same." I mean, I was thinking about everybody that had gone through 2020, and there was a huge change, and now everybody's trying to crawl back to what do they perceive as being normal. But Seth Godin's comment was this. He said, because whatever system, he's commenting on, I have to change to stay the same. His comment was, because whatever system we're in is changing, because every step we take changes the ground we walk on. Because while you're busy trying to keep it all together, someone else is working just as hard to change it again. And I'll skip a little bit of it. At the very last here, he says, what you do isn't how you do it. What you do is the promise you make to the people you serve. And we are a service organization here. If the people change, then the specifics of your promise have to change as well. In other words, you've got to embrace change to make sure that you even keep up. We're in a river and a current that's pushing in a certain direction. Now, in the last deal, I closed with these 2 slides, and I just want to really quickly repeat them to you from the last deal, because we're going to take it a step further this time. My prediction was that the independent dentist, the surviving practices will look like this, 6 to 8 ops, multiple doctors with twice the number of hygiene or hygienists as we have full-time doctors, expanded hours. That means Fridays and Saturdays, early, late, wider range of services. I mean, most corporations offer implants, Clear Choice, Invisalign, whatever, oral surgery, all in the same place. We're going to see that the independent practice is going to have a wider range of services. They're going to embrace change. They have to, because it's a constant. We can't just arrive and stay there. And that's kind of what that comment was about. You can't stay the same. The current pushes you, even if you try to stand still or tread water. They're going to make decisions by looking at their numbers. They're going to embrace consumerism. I mean, we are a dental practice is just a business that relies on patients or clients or consumers to spend money with us and buy our products. And they're pretty fickle, okay? So the one-stop shop is going to be what survives in the future. Now, I referenced the super dental practice, okay? That address above it there, the supergeneralpractice.com, you can get a copy of the second version, because over the months that we do this, I may refer to certain chapters and it may go into greater detail. And the chapters make really good, like a topic for a staff meeting or something like that. So tonight we're going to start talking about the mindset for success. Like, where do I start? I mean, I'm purporting that you need to change. And so I thought this was a little weird, and maybe this is going to come out wrong. And I kind of have this happen a lot when I'm sitting at the table with my wife and some friends, and I say something without thinking, and my wife has to remind me to engage my brain before I open my mouth. But I'm probably going to trip over this. When I typed it up, it sounded perfect in my brain. And now that I'm looking at it, not so much. I said, I think there is a myth of the great COVID reset. I think most people think about the reset would be kind of the way they were in 2019 before COVID hit us. But my memory is pretty damn good so far. And I'm thinking back at all the practices I look at, the practices I help doctors start, and the practices that they have, and the questions they have. That 2019, most of the doctors I talked to, their practices were struggling then. They weren't consistent in their growth. They didn't have anything more than just the average number of dental patients. They struggled to keep staff. I thought the COVID reset, that 2 months off and not hiring people back until you could do about $20,000 per employee, would change the way people do business. But I think there's a myth about this COVID reset. We've got to do better than we were doing back when it was even good times, okay? So what's going to hold you back? I did a short list here, and I'm sure everybody could add to this, but I was trying to think of things that were a constant with almost every practice I see. Even practices that produce a lot, they still struggle in some aspect of their practice. I mean, somebody that's doing a solo doctor doing $250,000 a month struggles sometimes with, having enough patients, or struggles with their overhead, or struggles with their lifestyle, things like that. So the first one, and this, you tend to write about things that you see in yourself. And I think the number one thing that's going to hold you back, if you decide to take the time over these months that we talk about specific topics, going to get more and more specific each time you come on here. But you've got to be at the point where you're applying what we're talking about. There's actually no learning without application. If we look at the hierarchy of learning, the first step in the hierarchy of learning is that you don't know what you don't know. You're unconsciously incompetent. Okay, we all started that way in dental school. Day 2, we were consciously incompetent. We actually knew we didn't know what we were doing there. And then when you graduate from dental school, the number 3 level is being consciously competent. I mean, we were just barely not dangerous. But the goal in life is become unconsciously competent at what we do. Holding a limited belief will hold us back. I talk to staffs all the time. One constant limiting belief that your staff has is that when you start trying to make these changes in your practice, your staff is thinking, oh, give it 2 weeks, it'll be right back to normal. Or this doctor will never change. Or, this doctor's never been able to do that, okay? My limiting belief is women. I mean, I went off to military school at the end of my sophomore year, or my junior and senior year, and I think I dated 3 women and married 2 of them. Okay, so, and just celebrated my 40th anniversary here. So again, my limiting belief is women, that they don't find me attractive, that I'm awkward with them. And so my uniform every day was carrying 7 marbles in my right pocket and trying to catch my staff doing something good, and telling them that, hey, I really appreciate what you did then, and that was incredible. Or how did you talk Mrs. Jones into doing that 3-unit bridge or that implant or whatever it was? And then I would take that marble and put it in my left pocket, and I would try to keep these women happy because I knew that women they have a bank account, and I never know what my balance is in my bank account with them. I mean, I know I'm going to screw up, so I keep trying to overcompensate that when I do screw up, there's a little grace left, and we keep the staff, and they're not that mad at me and stuff. So lack of consumerism is probably something that everybody thinks they know, but few people consider it on a minute by minute basis. I mean, consumerism is giving patients what they want, when they want it, at a price they can afford. Now, what they want, I think the biggest mistake most doctors make is thinking that patients want what you have to sell them. I mean, I've never heard anything so absurd in my life. People will take a sleep apnea course, and they're going to expect to turn their practices around. I mean, it's lack of consumerism is huge. Again, if you're not growing 15, 20% a year, if you don't have, 40, 50 new patients a month per doctor, if you don't have, good overhead, then it's a lack of consumerism. You're not giving patients what they want. Thinking your job is dentistry. And I'm going to mention this a couple of times because it's a weird statement, I know, but if I were standing in the line at Jason's Deli, and there's a lady in front of me, and she's wearing a lab coat, and it's got, some dentist name over the pocket, or her name in a dental office there. And I'm standing there, I'm just talking to her. I mean, forget the COVID, I got my mask off, so I'm really talking to her. And I just go, hey, are you work in a dental office? She goes, yeah. And I said, so what do you do? And she goes, well, I'm a hygienist. And I go, well, pretend I'm not a dentist, and I'm going, well, what do you do? What do they pay you for? And then she will, in some form or another, describe what she does clinically. Well, I live and breathe for 2 to 3 millimeter pockets and no bleeding points. And I'm kind of the smile doctor, the gum doctor in our practice. I help you keep your teeth for your entire life. And really, if I did that for any position, assistant, front desk, the doctor, they would give me some iteration of the clinical side of what they do. People that do that, they think their job is doing dentistry. And in a consumer-driven business, yes, you are doing dentistry, but your real job is inspiring your patients, okay? Being remarkable. Whatever they think about a dentist, they need to think about you being remarkable. No one needs another average dental practice or an average dentist, okay? The wrong practice strategy. Again, this is one of those things where you kind of go, duh. But I had a doctor call me. I was out on a tractor, and I said, hang on just a minute. Let me turn the tractor off. I said, what's going on? And I didn't know the doctor. He said, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. We've never met, but someone told me I could call and you might be able to help me. And I went, well, I'll try. So I'm getting off the tractor. I'm walking towards the house, and we're talking. And he says, I think I'm going to go bankrupt. He said, I opened this practice a year ago. Looks beautiful. Great location. Patterson said this was an awesome location, and a lot of nice homes here, things like that. And I said, well, and I walk into the house and I pull up a database, and I'm going, well, what's your zip code? And I type it in, and he's just telling me more about his practice. And I finally just, I don't know if he said something or I just realized he wasn't a general practitioner. He's a pediatric specialist, and he was in Clearwater, Florida. And I'm going, I'm looking at the demographics for Clearwater, Florida. And Patterson told you that, he goes, oh yeah. He said there weren't any pediatric specialists in our area. And I went, yeah, it's because there's no kids there. It's a, blue-haired Jewish snowbird colony. He had the wrong practice strategy for a location. I see doctors young doctors especially, they go, oh, Dr. Abernathy, I'm thinking about buying a practice, and I want to make sure I buy a fee-for-service practice. And I'm going, and where do you live? Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, dear, 98% of every person in that area has one There's just one managed care plan there. It's a PPO. I said, you will go bankrupt. And she said, well, shouldn't I want, so again, doctors look at this different. Oh, I have doctors move to a different location. Okay. This guy was the highest guy in the, I better not say the organization, but it's a cosmetic dentistry organization. And we'd spoken before, we'd spoken on the same platforms. Great dentist, one of the best dentists I know. I mean, clinically. He goes, Mike, I think I'm going to bankrupt. I get a lot of, I think I'm going to go bankrupt calls. And I'm going, I don't understand. He says, well, I moved my practice about a year and a half ago. And I went from an area where the average income was like 65,000 to one where it's like 220,000. And I said, well, I don't understand. Why did you do that? I mean, I thought you had a real good practice. And he goes, well, they have more disposable income and I'll have the opportunity to do more things I like to do. And I felt like Dr. Phil, right? He was like, how's that working for you? What were you thinking? He moves into an area where people make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, probably more. They all come from upper middle class families. They've always brushed and flossed. They're wealthy by any means. And the average age is an age where they either fixed it or they're never going to need anything. So comprehensive dentistry for these people was a bleaching, tray, and a cleaning. Okay. Poor demographics, poor location. Failure to embrace change, kind of what we started this out with, people not embracing change. The minute you're done with change, you're done in our business. Financial captivity. Max could give you story after story after story of doctors that haven't even taken a paycheck in 2 or 3 months. They owe so much money, overspending in the practice. And I'll say this too. If you have a doctor that's mean-spirited in his practice or can't handle money in his practice or is rough with his patients, they're doing the same things when they go home too. So we get to know our clients and we know that it's endemic, for both sides of it. And the last thing, and I could probably put the last one listed here as number 30. It was poor clinical results. Very seldom is that the reason that people struggle. I alluded to this last time, but we didn't go over this. So I want to go over this real quickly, and I'll be a little Pentecostal about this. I would have to say that something happened to us. I mean, I remember being very open-minded and questioning about everything when I graduated from college and high school. You graduate from dental school, and somewhere they inoculated us with the think like a dentist dental gene. I mean, which is just the wrong way to look at running a business. Okay. I mean, the one thing I see is doctors crossing that graduation stage, wanting to have, a great, solo practice. Well, I mean, that's why there's average practices, right? I mean, if I asked you, what would a great solo dental practice look like? You would list a lineage of things. I mean, like you might say, certainly more new patients than an average practice, certainly a higher production per new patient, higher stay for staff, higher stay for, the people we work on, a lot of direct referrals, a lot of crown and bridge. But if you really had a practice that had all those things, any descriptor you wanted to use, you couldn't stay a solo practice. If you were really inspiring your patients, if you were remarkable in the eyes of a consumer, you would need more than one hygienist and then more than 2. You couldn't check them. So you'd need more doctors. And then you expand your hours and then it would continue to grow. That in essence is what a super general dental practice is. I don't care what the production level is. I care about the overhead and the fact that it's growing. You kind of think you're the one, especially these young doctors. They think they're the one doctor that can start a practice in the North Dallas corridor where the ratio of dentist to population is one dentist for every 128 people. And the average number of children is 47% of that 128 people. And they're going to do the fee for service. They think they're the one person that won't become an alcoholic or get involved in drugs or have a kid that gets busted or fails out of school or whatever. Okay. you're not the one. Okay. I'm not the one. Nobody's the one. Okay. You're lucky if you are. And probably that's probably people like, somebody that gets 8 Olympic medals. I think Mark Spitz got 8 in one Olympic. The record lasted 30 years and he didn't do too well. Okay. That was the peak. He probably still wears his leather jacket. Okay. You believe clinical excellence will create unlimited growth. I mean, if that were true, the very best clinical dentist would have more patients. Okay. We've talked about, thinking your job's dentistry. Okay. I think you're thinking like a dentist, you have poor situational awareness. You've got to understand the concept of consumerism, getting people what they want, when they want it at a price they can afford. And that price they can afford doesn't mean lowering your fees. It means fitting it into their budget. Okay. That's what I mean. Okay. Commoditization. I mean, over the 45, 50 years I've been in dentistry, insurance companies, commercials on TV, every sort of communication device has commoditized healthcare, where a doctor is a doctor, a cleaning is a cleaning, a crown's a crown. Okay. And that you've got to be aware that every person that walks in is going to have that mindset. Okay. Leadership falls to number 50, or maybe it's not even on your list of important things when you get there every day. Okay. You make decisions without knowing your key practice indicators or your numbers. Okay. I think the entitlement thing, I see this really strongly prior to the last 10 years, especially in young graduates, when they weren't coming out of school with quite as much debt. Now, according to several, they run, just like they run deals and prediction of the presidential elections, they run a deal on what student debt or student loans are spent on. What they found was 9% was spent on alcohol, drugs, and vacations. Okay. I mean, can you imagine you come out of dental school and you're, a lot of it wasn't just for the dental school. And then there are dental schools. I mean, you could graduate from one dental school on the West Coast and pay $530,000, or you could graduate from one in Texas and pay, $150,000, $200,000. And guess what they call you after you graduate? Doctor. I have never, ever had anybody but another dentist ask me where I graduated. Okay. What do you call a C- student that graduated from dental school? Doctor. Okay. So again, they come out and have this entitlement. Okay. That shiny object syndrome, where they've got to have every whiz bang, shiny thing there is, 3D cone beams, whatever it is, before they ever even learn how to talk to a patient. Okay. A lot of dentists have this messiah complex, they could do anything, walk on water, whatever. We've raised a generation of people that believe debt's normal throughout your career. I mean, a lot of these doctors have the burn rate of a hip hop music mogul. I mean, that's what we call lifestyle suck, and it will affect your ability to have options when you really want them, later in your years. Okay. So I'm going to throw out a challenge for you here, and then Max is going to help me by sending you kind of a follow-up link to this. We spoke about this briefly in the last deal. I won't spend much time on it, but in diagnosing yourself, I've listed these items on a couple of slides. And I want you to fill in the blank, the currently side of this. I want you to research this yourself. Your ratio of doctors to patients. Potential patients. Okay. 1 to 2,000 is ideal. 1 to greater than that would be, as we say in Texas, gooder. Okay. But 1 to 600, I mean, you might as well, slide down a wall and, put your head between your knees and kiss your tush goodbye, because you're never going to strive to be great in an area where the ratios get too bad. It's such a huge, and in locations, almost everything. You'll see that with some of the more successful corporations, is that they pick the best location in town. Okay. Compensation is the next one. I abbreviated this because we talked about it last time, but compensate anything you spend on staff, ideally would be 25%. I'll bet the people that are listening here, I will bet you it's over 34% for most of you. That's killing you. At least do this. Figure out what 1% of a year's collection is for you. If it were $1 million, it'd be $10,000 per percentage point. If you miss that 25%, it's 33, you miss by 8%, you're talking about, 8 times $10,000, 80 grand a year that you could have paid off debt. You could have invested in something that cash flows. Facility cost, 7 to 9%, marketing, and that's internal and external, 3 to 5%. Dental supplies, I think 6% is easy to hit. You could probably do a little better than that. Lab, 8 to 10%. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say we're looking at a practice and the lab was 5%. And so I'm going to ask the doctor, I said, so do you have a CIRAC or E4D machine, something like that? Because that would be reasonable to ask that because it's so low compared to 8 to 10%. And they go, no. Now I'm thinking, okay, every one of these key things we're looking at here, if his lab is real low, then I'm thinking one of several things. I have a very non-assertive doctor that's not telling patients what they really need. They're doing MODBL, pin something, amalgam fillings, composite fillings. Okay. They don't have the testicular fortitude to at least inform the patient of what they need and let them make that decision. Okay. Or they're in the wrong location. Maybe it's an area where the income is so low, where it's $28,000, $30,000 for a family a year that they couldn't afford crowns. Or it could be in a demographic where the age was 28 or 30, where no one needs a crown, right? Every one of these things play a part. And as we go on after this time, and we go on next time, you're going to need this data in front of you. And so what I'd like to do is get you to fill this out so you have it. No one's going to see it unless you want me to look at it. If you'd like me to look at it, send it to me, and I'll be glad to spend an hour or so with you going over it. Many of you have done that with me, but again, you did it once. I mean, if you're real health conscious, don't you get your teeth cleaned a couple of times a year? Don't you? I mean, I do a stress test every year. I do colon cancer screening every 5 years. I do whatever it takes. I mean, it's worth redoing and seeing if things have changed. Okay. Referrals. That is the one number that I would harp on. If you're not getting at least a 50% direct referral rate, there's something incredibly wrong with what you're doing. Okay. Hygiene production. I mean, over and over, I'm seeing hygiene doing 25%, 23%. If they're not doing 33% of your total production, there's room for improvement. And again, remember that 1% deal. Okay. How much more you could add to that. Production per new patient and production per employee and production per operatory. I would say in any practice that I've owned, any practice that I've worked with, I look at that production per employee and it's always less than $20,000 per employee. And then they work with us and they work with us and all of a sudden they go, wow, I'm at $20,000 per employee. And guess what? Now their overhead's below 60%. It's in the 50% range. Okay. Very simple, very straightforward. I harp on this in everything I write. You have to make decisions based on real numbers. There's no way that you could take the information we're giving you without having this data for your practice to know where to start. It'd be like being in Disney World and going, I don't know where the hell I am, and I've got these grandkids that I'm about to choke to death. And I'm going, I don't know where the Magic Kingdom is. Well, the nice thing there is they have an app for your phone, or they have a kiosk and they'll say, you are here. You need to do this. I encourage you to please do it. Okay. So Max is going to send you a link for this, a copy of the Diagnose Yourself articles. Okay. And then I didn't tell him that I was going to do this. So he's probably thinking I'm going to kill Mike because how am I going to do all this to you guys? But I really want you to consider running with this, and this is the only way to do it. This is something you're going to use for the next, 6-7 months that we're doing this, or longer. I mean, if I can get Max to let me do it longer, you're going to need this data, and you'll need to update it, because hopefully the updating part will be the good one. Okay. John Mark belongs to a group called Freedom Founders. David Phelps, and I have spoken before them a bunch of times, and they talk about their freedom number and the safe harbor. And I wanted to touch on this tonight because I need to give you a snapshot of your life when you're 55 or 60, and you haven't been very engaged and conscious of where you were in your practice and striving the whole time. This fulfillment curve was a book written about 25 years ago, may have been longer, but I thought it was brilliant in its simplicity, and it meant a bunch to me because, again, as in most things, I feel like I'm an expert in the fulfillment curve because I screwed it up so many times. Okay. So let me just explain it to you. Okay. Everybody starts on the left-hand side of this representation, okay, of this curve, right at the bottom, right in the survival deal. You get out of dental school, you've got no money, you have a lot of debt, and you need to really find a job, get an apartment, get your wife working, whatever it is you need to do. We need certain survival things: enough food to eat, a car to drive, decent place to live, a job. Okay. And then somewhere between survival and comforts, we start making a living, start paying off our debt. And the comforts might be owning your own home, actually having 2 cars, or, more, or whatever it is. And then we graduate to luxuries, which would be right at the top. There is something, and he didn't talk about this in this particular book. I refer to it as ultimatism, kind of ultimate, but kind of doing this all the time, ultimatism, where I went from survival to comforts to nicer comforts to luxury stuff, okay? Right at the top of the deal. And then I kept getting more luxuries, but when we look at it, we look at fulfillment on the left, money spent, like taking a drug, it dropped off. Now, I've not done this for most of you guys, so I apologize. I'm not trying to proselytize, but my 5th year, I got married actually the last day of dental school. I mean, the same day, the day before I graduated, I got married. Okay. I actually married one of my patients from dental school. She was a buyer for Neiman Marcus, traveled a couple of weeks out of the month, and we got married, moved back to McKinney. And about 4 years into our marriage, we had a nice house, cars, most of the comforts and some luxuries. And she wanted a divorce. We had no children. She left. I became addicted to cocaine. I was doing about 2 grams a day. I mean, man, you can knock out some dentistry on cocaine. I mean, you can get your clinical speed up. I was just going downhill. I was depressed, and someone introduced me to God. And I went home and said a sinner's prayer, smoked a joint, and put a 45 in my mouth and pulled the trigger. And my life changed, right? 2 years later, my wife of now 40 years, she was a patient of mine. It was about, 2 years after that happened, and I, found God. My front desk lady says, "Why don't you ask her out?" She's married. No, she's divorced now. I said, "Well, she has a baby." I says, "So ask her out." Her husband divorced her about the same week she found out she was pregnant. I mean, they were going to have a baby, and he was running off with another lady, and the divorce was final about the time Courtney was born. And so my life changed. I've got 3 kids, 7, grandkids and stuff like that. My perspective at looking at this fulfillment curve and self-involvement has changed. And it changed about the time that I realized that my stress level increased in the direct proportion of the number of gasoline engines and second homes I owned. Okay. And so what happens is once you get over this luxury deal, the fulfillment drops down like drugs. It takes more and more to give you that rush, but it just becomes clutter. You've got to acquire it. You've got to learn it, operate it, store it, maintain it, fix it, make payments on it, protect it, feel guilty about it, upgrade it, sell it, and maintain it as new. That was my problem. Maintain it as new.
To insure it.
What?
You have to buy insurance on all of it.
Insurance on all of it. We actually had a doctor that I think the insurance payments alone on his cars were over $2,000 a month. And he had a big run-in later on in life with, was it the government or something about, bad. Okay, so I'll stop preaching. I want you to look at this though for just a minute. Okay. There is a point at which there should be enough. Okay. There should be enough. Okay. At that point, you'll know it because there's purpose in your life. You're responsible. You feel accountable. You have a mature internal yardstick, and you have financial independence. Financial independence should mean this to you, that you can have anything in life you want. You just can't have everything in life you want. So be careful what you choose. I mean, I want you to have peace of mind. I want you to be out of debt, savings, skills, community income. All of those come in a super general dental practice, okay? So I want you to think about what your current debt is, okay? What your current debt is, and how much longer will it take for you to pay that off? Your freedom number would represent passive income coming to you without you working. In other words, you're not trading time for money any longer. Your goal in life should be, yes, working hard, being focused, but still have a balanced life at home and stuff, but save your money. You should be saving at least 20% a year, at least 20% a year. The normal individual should save 14%, but you have that burn rate like a hip hop music mogul. Okay. So your freedom number is going to be that number, that it would replace your income. And hopefully at that point you have no debt. The safe harbor would be about 25% more. I am so surprised when I talk to doctors and I say, how much longer do you want to practice? And how much money do you need to feel financially independent? The mistake most people make is thinking, and I am guilty, that when you're younger and you're making money and you're saving it, your whole mind is, I'm going to save a pile of money so big that when I do retire, I couldn't spend it all. Okay, well, some of you aren't old enough to remember the Great Recession, where stock market dropped 47%. I mean, people went bankrupt. People that retired had to come back and work for an extra 10 years. Okay. I don't want that for any of you. Okay. And the last thing is you need to involve your spouse in this. I mean, I tell you, one of the best things about Freedom Founders, and again, I'm not trying to get you to call them. I don't care. But one of the nice things about the group as a group is that even though David can show them how to do passive income and stuff like that, investing in real estate, it's interesting how maybe for the first time in many years, I'm seeing doctors with their spouses there and they're of one mind again. You remember how you were when you first got married? It was almost like they've recaptured that and they're excited about the future. So, okay. So this is success DNA. In a super general dental practice, we need to grow it. Okay. You should be growing at least 15% a year. Every year, no matter what happened. You set that for a goal, that's going to happen. In fact, consumption, that's your burn rate, your life suck rate, the thing that's holding you back, the current that you're swimming through. Okay. I mean, when you don't have debt, it's like you get to swim downstream. It's really easy swimming. You're doing everything right. But this consumption, you need to control it. That instant gratification, you just can't keep this up. If you can't afford to buy a new car with a check, don't buy it. You know, debt, we've got to eliminate it. Savings, we've got to build it up. I always felt like savings. I said, if I saved it and I didn't spend it, there'd be a good chance it'd be there when I actually needed it. And that kind of worked out for me. And then I've tried to give away a bunch of money. And it just seems like every time I remember, and this just happened about a year ago, I had a missionary that needed some money. And I mean, I live on a fixed income. Okay. No, I'm not earning money. And so I wrote a check for $5,000 to this missionary. And I went, well, you know, I can afford to write the checks. It's just, you know, that was a hit for that week, right? It's a big check. And that Saturday, I got a check for $5,000 from a person John Mark Weaver and I both know. I mean, it just magically showed up. And he says, I want you to give this to, I already gave it to, you know, who he wanted me to give it to. Okay, I just went, wow. It's like, woo, you know, that's, you know, don't change that dial. You know, it's like Twilight Zone. Okay. Now, we're going to need to assemble some tools and team to help you do this. And I want to help you. Is that your wife, Scott, or your daughter, or?
That's my youngest daughter.
She's a cutie. I just spent a week with my grandkids, and that's a long time. I'm sorry. There's a time for everything, right? And when you're a grandparent, it's awesome for that first hour, right? And then you're kind of looking for a place to lie down or go do something. Okay. So I'm going to want, if you send me that information, I'm going to want you to send me a profit and loss statement for 2020. And in our conversation, I want to take the time to show you the difference between profit and loss and an actual document you could use to manage your practice. Now, previously we talked about, you know, key practice indicators, and we kind of listed all of them. Well, the other side of those practice management key practice indicators, or you know, just the key numbers you needed to look at to make decisions, is the outflow side, and that's your profit and loss statement. And again, I think most doctors on the surface think that a profit and loss statement is profit and loss. It is not profit and loss. Profit and loss statement is a GAAP document, a generally accepted accounting principles document that involves expenses that have tax consequences. The reason the CPA likes you to have a profit and loss statement makes it easier for them to do your taxes. But for your purpose, the one thing that's missing, well, one thing that's on there that's not really profit and loss either, is amortization and depreciation. Okay. But the one thing that's missing, probably the most important thing when you're younger in life, or if you have a huge burn rate and you keep buying stuff, is your debt service. Okay, your debt service. And Max, while I'm thinking about this, on that, you can just nod or whatever, or tell me, but is it possible to put one spot on that second page and ask them what their monthly debt service is? Because I get their profit and loss, but I have to ask them what their debt service is. You know, what you pay in debt on a monthly basis totally changes your profit and loss. Okay. We can have a profit and loss that say you have, $30,000 left over, but if you've got $15,000 in debt you're paying, that's not very much left over. Okay. So I think we can add that to that spreadsheet, and then it'll help me understand, it'll help you understand what profit and loss is. When we talk, I'll be glad to email you an example of a profit and loss statement and a cash flow statement and explain the differences and then how to organize them. And basically what we do is we take that whole long list of maybe 100 items and divide it into 7 categories. The 7th being anything we spent on you, the owner. Even though you're an employee of the corporation, I want you to look at this as the real overhead is everybody else and everything else. So anything that belongs to you will be on the 7th. And the others are going to be just like we talked about earlier. And at the first deal, it's going to involve basically compensation, facility costs, dental supplies, marketing, lab, office supplies. So those 6 items. And we're going to have you change the format, and it'll make it instantaneous where you can just look at it and know exactly where you are that month. Okay. Whether you're doing well, whether you're struggling, or whatever. Okay. We're also going to need you to partner with professionals. I got off the phone with 2 doctors today. One of them can't get me a profit and loss statement from 2020 because his CPA doesn't have it yet. If you can't see that profit and loss statement by the first or second day after the month closes, fire your CPA and let me give you the name of a great one. Okay. But even better, why don't you, I mean, a lot of you guys pay your own checks, or your wife pays them, or your spouse pays them, or someone in the office pays them. Have your own QuickBooks set up in the fashion we're going to suggest to you, and look at your QuickBooks, every few days. See where you are. While there's still time in the month left, make a change. Work harder, add a day, work in that crown that you're going to put off till next week or whatever. Okay. But finding professionals you can partner with is really, really, really important. And we've got to develop habits of excellence. Now, I've never done this before. These are the people I use. Rob and John Eagleston are out of either Phoenix or Scottsdale, but their dad, who's still living, sold me my first disability policy with Northwest Mutual. And he calls me every year on my birthday, and I haven't had a policy with him in years, but I do use his son's. And I have found that these guys don't try to sell you something, and they represent dozens and dozens, maybe 100 different insurance companies. They get you the best deal and stuff. They do really good. And I haven't spoken to Rob or John probably in 6 months, but they spend a lot of time working with the young graduates and stuff. Attorneys, if I were going to go, and I think every one of you needs asset protection, but if I was going to do asset protection, I would go with Lodmell and Lodmell. Doug Lodmell is a good friend of mine, but he's also the premier asset protection attorney in the United States. And his stepbrother runs Cedar, which is probably one of the best HR policy manual and HR people in the United States. And then again, if you need an attorney for contracts and things, please get a dental specific attorney. Attorneys have a tendency, well, let me back up a sec. When we were in school, we took a lot of biology and chemistry. And I don't know everything about biology and chemistry. I hope I've forgotten most of the stuff about chemistry, but I could answer a lot of questions about biology and chemistry. And if I didn't know the answer, I would know where to go to look for it. Okay. So I feel confident if we were talking about biology and chemistry. Attorneys are that way with contracts. They spend a majority of their time doing contracts. The problem with that is they think they know how to do contracts. But if I had to define a good or great contract, it would be a written document that created remedy for any possible problem that popped up. Now, the case with most attorneys is they don't know anything about a dental practice. So they're not going to know the problems that could pop up. So with most attorneys, you don't realize that you had a crappy attorney, even if it was your cousin or your dad or your brother or whatever it was, or CPA or anything else that's related to you, until something bad happens. You die, and then you find out that the will wasn't prepared properly, or you go through some type of disability. You'll find out someone sold you the wrong kind of policy and stuff. I purposely don't use my own family 7 generations of attorneys, brother's attorney, daughter's an attorney, dad was an attorney, everybody's an attorney in my family. I have used them, asked them questions and stuff, but generally on specific stuff, I go to someone specific for that. I'd have no problem with them drafting a dental contract because I'm going to read it and point out the areas that I want addressed in that contract. But most attorneys cannot do that. CPAs, I've tried a bunch of CPAs, and I was real disappointed when my main CPA retired. And I've started with another one with Bill Ladd and Jared Duckett. These guys are dental specific CPAs. I mean, they certainly know everything about other things too, but they could probably tell you much about your dental practice as I could, which is nice when you have somebody that speaks dental. And they will force you to organize your profit and loss statement in the format we're recommending. Most CPAs we fight with. I mean, Max can tell you. In fact, we had an accountant that used to work with us, and we'd get him to argue with the CPAs because we didn't want to spend time wasting, time dealing with them. They're going, well, that's not proper profit and loss statement. You can create a regular profit and loss statement and put debt payments in there, guys. As long as your CPA knows when he's doing your taxes that you've done that, it's fine. It then approximates a cash flow statement. You get real profit and loss out of this. Well, they do this automatically, so you won't have to school them at all, okay? So probably the number one habit in excellence, because I said I was going to talk about that in just a moment, is accountability. I mean, everybody believes in accountability. Kind of like everybody knows we need rain. But no one likes getting wet. It's been raining here for 3 or 4 days. I think we got 3-4 inches in about 4 hours a couple of days ago, and it's rained every day. Okay. I'm tired of the rain. You can't get tired of being accountable in your practice because it means answering for your actions. I mean, when you have staff, and we're going to do programs about leadership and stuff, but when we talk about this, you're modeling the behavior you want from your staff. If you're saying one thing and doing another, that's kind of a rhetoric reality gap. What you say isn't what you do. Okay. If you aren't owning your own performance every day, regardless of the noise going around you, no one else is going to take up that flag. Okay. So accountability means rising above your excuses. I mean, when you get rid of your excuses, you tend to find your goals. Now, I found this, and I found it a few years ago, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty good slide. Okay. And again, we need to be careful about what's happening, around us, our states, our federal government, and be real proactive about, doing the things that we need to do to make this happen. So Max, if there are any questions, let me do one other thing. Okay. I'm doing a plug for the next one here. Okay. It's not finished. I actually have something on this piece of paper. So, and Max would look at this going, there's no way you can do that in an hour. Yeah. Hour and 15 minutes. And I'm going, I know, but I'll make it when I get there. The next time we talk, I want to talk about the silent killer of every dental practice I've seen. The one thing, and no one knows they have it. No one ever I've never heard anybody talk about this one thing I want to talk about next time. And it's attrition. Okay. No one talks about the effect of attrition and all the symptoms, where it comes from, how it happens, what you do to do it. So we're not only going to cover the attrition and cancellations and no-shows and all these other things. You'll walk away with nothing but a pile of notes. And it may take me, hour and a half to talk about next time, but come with your thinking caps on, because this could increase your take home by about 20% the next month after we go over this. Okay. Okay. Anybody got any questions? It doesn't have to be about what we talked about today. So anything at all. Just unmute yourself.
I'll say something. I was making some notes while you were talking there.
Okay.
the thing about which kind of it all fits together, certainly the financial captivity, the entitlement, the fulfillment curve, all of that kind of fits together, you know. But you talked about being debt free, and I think so many people assume that, well, that's just not reality today. Nobody can do that, right? You know, we had a client a few years ago. He was up in Denver. He graduated with about $300,000 in school debt, went out and bought a practice for about another $300,000, and within 3 years had all of his school debt and all of his practice debt paid off. Now, he lived just like he lived in dental school or college. You know, he didn't buy a new car. He didn't buy a big house. He didn't take any vacations for 3 years, but he got his debt paid off. You think he's worried about the economy? You think he's worried about interest rates going up? No, he's not worried about anything, you know. And you know, Mike can tell you, we see these guys all the time that make huge late career mistakes. We had a guy here in the local area that had plans drawn for building. He was 60-ish.
60.
He had plans already drawn in place. He already bought the property. He was getting ready to break ground on an 11,000 square foot dental practice. $4 million was the cost estimate. And everybody knows that they never can come in at the estimate. They always end up costing more than that. Right?
And he didn't owe anything on his land, Max.
I know. I mean,
it was all building.
Amazing.
His reception room was 1,100 square feet.
Yeah.
His payment.
We had another
$20,000 a month.
Yeah, we had another doctor I think he was in his mid to late 60s, just decided to go ahead and buy a $2 million airplane. You know, I mean, there's just we got a million stories, guys, and most of them are ugly. You know, I was reading recently, and I'd seen this from him before, from Howard Ferrand. I think it was in the latest issue of Dental Town, but it may have been the prior month, where he talks about a college graduate who goes out and gets a good job that pays him $100,000 a year versus the college graduate that decides to go to dental school and racks up $400,000 in debt over 4 years of dental school. So he's missed out earning $400,000 and added on top of that $400,000 in debt. So 4 years after graduating from college, he's $800,000 behind his fraternity brother, you know, that got a degree in whatever, you know, but didn't go to professional school. So it's, you know, it's kind of sobering, I think, when you start looking at some of those numbers like that. You know, and be careful too when Mike talks about your referral percentage being a bare minimum of 50%. That's 50% of 50. Okay. I see these people all the time that tell me, oh yeah, my referral rate's 100%. Well, yeah, you got 9 new patients last month and they were all referred, you know, and you're starving. You can't make a living on 9 new patients. So yeah, it's one thing to have all of your patients referred. If you're still getting that number of 40 or 50 new patients a month, that would be fantastic. That would be awesome. And then I'll stop with this and let you guys ask some questions. This is one of those kind of interesting little things that you hear, and it's kind of a sign of the times, and you need to be a student of that and pay attention to that. I heard on the news this morning that Walmart nationwide is experiencing a shortage of whitening strips. Why do you think that would be? No clue? People are taking their masks off. They're concerned now, more so than in the past year, about how their teeth look. Some of them, truth be told, probably hadn't brushed their teeth in a year because they haven't left their house in a year, right? So what do I hear when I hear that? I mean, all you guys ought to be doing some kind of advertising for whitening. You're going to get them a better result in a shorter amount of time than anything they can buy over the counter at Walmart, right? Plus, Walmart's got a shortage. They can't even meet demand, and yet the average dentist out there has no clue that that's happening.
Max,
and is not really even thinking about it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just you mentioned the Walmart, but I'd say a lot of the calls I get are about I can't keep staff, I can't find staff. What was the sign in front of Walmart?
That was a sign in front of McDonald's. That McDonald's, this location happened to be in Pennsylvania, but they were offering a $500 signing bonus for new employees at McDonald's. Okay, I read another article in the Wall Street Journal one day last week that Amazon is trying to hire 75,000 people. They're offering a $2 uptick in their starting hourly pay plus $1,000 signing bonus for 75,000 people. So, if it troubles me to say this, but I think dental practices had better get their arms around the idea that they may have to start paying people more to get decent people. So what does that mean? Well, that means you're going to have to find some other places to save money so you can pay your staff better.
Or produce
Perhaps.
more.
Produce more, do some of the things that the corporate dental people do, Trust me, they don't just call Shine and say, what's your price on X, Y, or Z? They call Shine and say, we're willing to pay this for X, Y, and Z. And then Shine and Patterson agree to that, but they make up the shortfall by charging you guys more for those products. And you just keep writing them checks. You just keep writing them checks as the price goes up and up and up. All right, I'm gonna put my soapbox away. Ask some questions.
Looks like I'm going to get out of here early.
I need to get that little theme music from the game show, where they ask the question and they go, yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Great. Thank you so much for taking care of a seminar like this for all of us. So first of all, I wanted to thank you. And I wanted to thank you for personally talking to me in the past. But considering that we are looking at paying more to the employees, where would you make changes? You mentioned more production. So at this point, the percentage that we pay employees would go up to 30%, or what should be our guideline?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly do you know what your production per employee is currently?
I would say we are close to 20,000.
Okay, good. I mean, all you have to do is divide the number of full-time employees. It could be 4.5, or, you could make a decimal point there, into what your average collection was. So let's say you had 5 employees and you're doing 100,000, that would be $20,000 a month per employee, right?
Correct.
Okay. So again, you're already doing, I mean, average practice is doing 13 or 14,000. They're really hurting to be competitive in the marketplace. Your overhead should be less. And again, I don't want to ask how many employees you have, but when you have to start paying more, it's surprising, I think, for most doctors, they tend to expect more for the money they pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, you pay a competitive salary, and a competitive salary may not be just the salary. Okay. What
Correct.
you pay them, they may say, well, this job is better than that job. I was just visiting an office in Scottsdale, and they had 2 employees quit had one that was going to quit in a month because she was changing careers, but the other one quit. And the reason she quit was she had to drive an hour and a half each way to get to work. Okay. So part of the better pay for that person was a more convenient location to work in. For the same pay would mean a better job for her. Okay. So again, I had her sit down with the staff and discuss what was a fair salary, what would they like the salaries to be, what kind of benefits were they looking at. So it's, sometimes it's the culture and the practice. A lot of staff will leave and say, well, I just can't get paid enough. What they're really saying is, this is a crappy place to work, and I'm just using this as an excuse. Kind of like your patients, not your patients, but what our patients will get up the front and they'll say, well, I need to check with my spouse, or I want to get a second opinion. It wasn't that they wanted that. They didn't like you. They didn't like what they saw there. So in hiring staff and keeping that overhead down, your expectation would be that you need to produce more. Now, how do you produce more? It may mean learning how to process more new patients, increasing your new patients. Your hygienist certainly will affect them by needing more new patients, because that's kind of their crown and bridge. Like, if we think of things that we make more money on in less time, crown and bridge is one of them. For hygienists, it's going to be new patients and scaling and root planing. If they don't get exposed to that, you can't let the hygiene department grow to the point that they're carrying 1/3 of your total collections. If your practice isn't at that point in hygiene, maybe you could offset what you had to pay for that assistant in helping the hygienist be more productive where they are. And that would compensate for it, so that you didn't take an uptick. It wouldn't go from, 25,000 to 30,000 like you're expecting. So it's constantly moving one thing to get the other thing done. But bottom line is, your hours have to be consumer friendly. We need long-term staff. Having staff turnover every year is not a practice building strategy, because patients notice that when they don't see the same person there. So we're going to have to be competitive on the money side of it. So I don't know if that answered your question. Max, do you have something to say?
No, I mean, the produce more is a difficult part of the equation, because mainly because I think everybody gets comfortable in the rate at which they work and the way in which they do things, maybe in the materials they use, the instrumentation that they use, things like that. So I think more than anything else, it's just the constant search of ways to be more efficient and more effective, rather than most people's normal default mode is finding that comfort zone and then just staying right in it, never wavering to the left or to the right or up or down, but just leave me in my little comfort zone here and let me do my thing, right? I think that's what you have to fight against, is to never accept that it's good enough. Most of you as dentists, I'm not a dentist, okay, but most of you as dentists never accept that the 10 crowns that you did last week, that any of them were good enough. You always think they could be better.
Right.
You're always striving for perfection in that. And yet I find very few dentists that are striving for perfection in insurance filing, that are striving for perfection in scheduling, that are striving for perfection in the collection rate, They're striving for perfection in case acceptance. They're striving for perfection in, I could list another 12 or 15 things. And as Mike said succinctly in one of his slides, it's not your clinical excellence that's going to make you, very successful in dentistry. It's essential that it be good dentistry, but that's not the thing that's going to make or break you as a dentist. People are not beating your door down for your excellent dentistry because they don't know. They don't have a way to judge.
Right.
Are kind of I tend to find that, when I talk to doctors, I've never found a doctor that feels they aren't working hard at dentistry. Okay. And again, I understand that feeling. Most of them feel they're too busy because all their time is really accounted for, kind of used up. But their question is, how can I possibly do more? Because if you follow this and our newsletters, and especially this, because I'm going to get real aggressive next time about encouraging you to fill out this stuff, send it to me. I'm not asking you to do more. That's not it. It's not doing more. It's doing less of the things that you shouldn't be doing and doing more of the high value things you should be spending time on. I don't know if I said that right, but it's like, I don't want you to work any more hours. I don't want you to work any harder. I want you to work smarter. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want to help you think differently. And
I get it.
So there is an answer to any problem that you can come up with. And odds are we've probably seen it before, and there will be a variety of ways to do it. I've given doctors the answer. They go, give them 3 answers. You can do it this way, this way, this way. I don't like any of those. They'll go, I won't do any of those. Well, then you come up with an answer, because I can't think but these 3. Then pick one. Well, I just don't, this one's unethical. This would be too hard to do. And I don't want to change my schedule to do that one. Those are the 3 answers. I'm sorry. It's like my son came, he was upset. He didn't want to go to church. And he goes, I prayed for something and God didn't give me an answer. I said, yeah, I did. It was no. He didn't want, didn't want to be no, so I'm going, that's an answer too. So there is an answer to this. And, I offer this to anybody that's on this call. That slide had my cell phone number on it. Call me. And then, because I know it's embarrassing to ask questions, because it's hard for me not to ask you specifically for some data. And sometimes when I ask that question, it's not data that people want to share in a group, because I just need more information, in that particular case, to tell you the 3 different ways you could do it, or 4 different ways you could approach it. But so feel free to call or email me or text me or whatever. So
no, I will be calling you, Dr.
Abernathy.
So yes.
Okay. Y'all just remember that I'm at Central Time, and you're on the West Coast, and you say, well, I'll call him at 7. Well, it's 9 for me. And if we talk for an hour,
I will be texting you to set up a time.
Okay. It's not, if I answer the phone, I can talk. Okay. So, but that's fine.
What you were saying there, Mac, what you were saying there reminded me, of not liking the answer. We were doing a program one time, a live presentation. We were talking about cancellations and no-shows, and then the doctors in the crowd were just going on and on and on about how horrible it was. And I said, all right, I have a client up in Toronto, and when he leaves the office every day, he forwards the office phones to his cell phone, so that when people call to cancel their appointments, they get him. They're not expecting to get him. Nobody wants to cancel with the doctor, right? He had virtually 0 cancellations and no-shows, right? So I said, would you be willing to do that? And this doctor said, no, I don't care about it. all that much, you know, which I appreciate. That was an honest answer, right? But there usually are answers to these common dilemmas. It's just, are you willing to do the things?
Yeah, if you really embrace the why, you're willing to do the how. Okay, I mean, it's really, you know, so engaged in your practice that you understand what you want and you'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. So most doctors aren't in that until they get their butt in a crack. And I thought that I could affect more doctors, you know, between March and about the time they went back in whenever it was, June, whatever, back to work. And I was surprised. A lot of them said, I will do it, I'll do it. And then I call them, you know, 6 months later and they're not doing it. So they're right back where they were, probably worse. And now they're dealing with, you know, staff shortages. And until the government stops paying people to not work, it's going to drive up the price of the ones that are there. And that inflated price will continue when these people in, 5 weeks, lose all of their, you know, free money and have to come back to work. They're going, well, you're paying her more. And then you just created this huge problem again. So once again, I think I can help you with that. Just give me a call and I'll be glad to talk to you as long as it takes to fix it for you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Going once?
Going twice.
Going twice? No, really, I mean, this is an opportunity. You know, you should take advantage of it. What can I say?
Okay, well, thanks for coming. I consider coming next time. You're going to find a whole bunch of meat, and it's, as Max says, it's going to be like getting a drink out of a fire hydrant, because you know, a lot of stuff to cover next time, all connected, but I kind of want to wrap it up with a bow on top of it. So I'm not going to stop till I finish. Okay. So
yeah, you think he's intense and fast paced now. You should have known him 40 years ago. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can say. All right. I will get that stuff out that Mike was talking about. Hopefully I'll get that out tomorrow. And if you get it and you know you don't understand it, you get it and the attachments won't open for you, whatever, don't just throw up your hands and say, well, it's not going to work for me. You know, just call. You know, my cell phone number's on there. Mike's giving me a cell phone number. And we generally answer unless we're busy talking. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm talking to Mike and he'll say, I got to go, somebody's calling. And he'll hang up on me to talk to you every time, you know.
While I was talking, I did go to the bathroom and then I looked up I'm just teasing. I was multitasking. I typed in the Super General Dental Practice on YouTube.
Yes.
And about the fourth thing down there, it just said Super General Dental Practice Part 1. And it was there, the video was there. So, I mean, you don't have to have a link if you're at this one, but you weren't at the last one, you know, then you'll be able to go back and look at that before the next one. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes. Thank you. And
thank you. Bye, Scotty. Have a good one.